because I use boss damage as a base value. And you can see here that 35.604, this thing literally does less base damage than a precision SMG. And they have the same RPM, and the precision SMG is widely agreed upon as the worst SMG archetype in the game. So I was like, yeah, this is just going to be worse. However, Bungie did a little trickery here. Go ahead and look at the minor and elite scalars on these weapons. SMGs, outside of new heat SMGs, all of them have the same minor and elite scalar. But for some reason, Bungie decided to give the aggressive burst SMG a different minor scalar and a different elite scalar. And that makes it, because SMGs are a relatively tight grouping compared to other primary archetype families, it's enough to kick this thing above everything else. And it is just the best accurate SMG in the game, right? So this is not a heat weapon or anything like that, not dynamic. It is just the best accurate SMG in the game because it just has better minor elite scalars. So don't use this thing for boss DPS. It is essentially a 600 RPM SMG when it comes to PKs for boss DPS. I've seen people, send me some videos about people using the new comp SMG for boss DPS. I wouldn't recommend it. Just stick to this balance guy, right? The fast talker. But yeah, like this thing, if you want to use it for ad clear, it's great for that. Now, would I recommend an SMG for ad clear all the time? I mean, you could use this as like a multi-monk alternative, I suppose. Has a very big mag as well, even though the reload is a little punishing at times. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of up to you. Definitely an interesting option, for sure, an interesting option. I will say another thing, now that we're kind of reaching the end of the heat weapon section here, is that heat weapons are a lot more sensitive to reload effects and exhausting effects. So just be aware of that compared to you can see it here, right? You can see that the typical reload value, now this wasn't perfectly tested, but the typical reload value, I just had, I believe, 100 weapons and a loader mod. And even with those things, you can see that heat weapons really suffer compared to their other kind of members of the same family. So heat weapons definitely, you need to play a lot more into their reload and make sure you make use of their mechanics in order to kind of circumvent some of these downsides, because they're much more sensitive. They have a much higher ceiling and a lower floor when it comes to, having nice reloads, having nice uptime. So just be aware of that. Okay, and finally, the last thing that I want to talk about is, of course, the Disruption Sniper. So let's go ahead and look at that. Go to power here. And this isn't necessarily going to tell us too much, but I will show you regardless. Yeah, so you have a bunch of rockets here, and then you have the Disruption Sniper, right? So this sniper, just manually reloading it, it's already competing with like heavy GLs and rockets, and these are when you are essentially shooting the rocket like as quickly as possible, like at max fire. So this thing is already pretty competitive in that regard when you are manually reloading, not even shooting it at max with the backup mag or with the auto reload thing when you pick up brick. Just shooting it at max, or like just shooting it as fast as you can when manually reloading with this is already up there with, for example, just spamming precision rockets at max fire rate as if you didn't have to ever reload your gun, right? So that's pretty crazy. This Luna B DPS thing is wrong because it calculates using a different formula that doesn't make sense for a one mag weapon, so just be aware of that, I suppose. But yeah, pretty impressive stuff from this guy. But really where it starts to shine is when I go to the other spreadsheet and I go to the sustain tab, which you've probably already seen because I've shown it in a different video. But yeah, this thing, 4,800 boss DPS when you're manually reloading it. If you take away Darcy and Riyad's simplification, like I talked about in the last video, it's somewhere around 4,900, right? And for how easy it is, and for how kinetic synthesis works this season, which we'll talk about artifact mods in a future video, but with how everything works this season, I mean, it's just the go-to. It's just the go-to. There's so many videos that content creators are putting out right now where they showcase, unique DPS strategies with different weapons, and like, oh, you can use this SMG, or you can use this weapon, or this weapon. And all of it kind of boils down to, this is the gold standard this season. So if you're not beating this with lower effort or similar effort, at least for like dungeon purposes or just, general DPS procs, like, it's really not relevant, I would say, for the most part, if you're at least chasing, optimal damage or whatever. So this thing is really the right balance this season between, low effort and really high reward and just having insane total damage. And we'll talk about some of the other damage options this season for sure, which we'll go over. Some of them you probably are even seeing on this screen right now as we're talking about them. But yeah, another thing I want to say is the capture footage I had from the gameplay preview, I got an incorrect base value from that footage. I think it was my fault. So yeah, this is maybe landing a little bit lower than people might expect compared to where it was before. But the reload value, like how fast you can shoot this thing by reload spamming at max reload, was faster than I expected. And because of that, it kind of moved down, and then I moved it back up. So it's not as high as it once was if you're looking at the spreadsheet pre-Renegades release. But I think it's, you know, it still accurately depicts a picture of how good this weapon is right now, especially with the artifact mods. The Darcy buff. Now, normally Darcy is, I believe, a 15.9% buff to special snipers. For some reason, Darcy with this sniper in particular is like 13.5%, which is not... It's not that much, right? It's not a huge difference or anything like that. But in my opinion, you know, having one person be on Darcy to buff everyone else by like 13.5%, not super worth it in my opinion. So I would say maybe don't run Darcy with this thing. I always do put network targeting here because people are probably curious, but you know, just drop it like by a couple hundred FPS if you're curious what it looks like without Darcy. Apparently this thing reloads automatically when you pick up the kinetic synthesis bricks, which allows people to just hip fire into a div bubble and sit underneath the div bubble collecting ammo pickups and just shooting non-stop. Apparently it also drops with backup mag, which it's not supposed to because you can't put backup mag on it normally, which gives it a size of a 4 mag, and then also with Envious gives it 12 in a mag, which is also probably not intended, so that's probably also going to be addressed before the day one. And then, yeah, we've already talked about how this thing's damage profile is ridiculous, even without Darcy, right? So let me go ahead and get rid of Darcy from this calculation here. You can see that this thing's base total damage is 110,000. And rockets with Pack Hunter, 60k. 60k with a good damage perk, right? So pretty crazy how this thing is kind of up here in this kind of top tier of damage options like optimized rockets, and it has doubled the total damage without any external assistance. So, and you're manually reloading the gun. It's not a rotation. You just reload the gun, right? So that's pretty cool, I guess. And then obviously heavy GLs and other rockets, you know, they fall even further behind base value. So yeah, I mean, it's, as I say here, uncontested even without sniper's rotation or any sort of special reload tech. Still class leading without Darcy, matches Acreus profile, which is right here, right? Matches the Acreus DPS profile, but it has more total damage. And it can be used at range. Only requirement is obviously that you hit the crit. So yeah, that's my opinion on the new hit types. Let's go ahead and talk about a couple other things, some adjustments that were made to the sandbox, and then we'll move on. So, Rocket Pulse reserves, you know, everyone was talking about this for a short period of time. 14. What does this mean? Let's go ahead and Control F, Mint Retrograde. Mint Retrograde right over here, rewind honing. What is this thing's profile looking like now? So before, when it had 18, I need to show you real quick. 18, 62k total. Pretty impressive for a special. You know, it's up there with like the Recon Redirection Succession. It's kind of similar to some of these other weapons here that are, you know, 4 times a charm specials or, you know, Numal Pipe, that sort of thing. Now it's got 48k. 48k. So that's a pretty big difference against Numal Pies. Numal Pies also received a nerf this patch, but, you know, that's a pretty substantial difference, right? So that kind of sets the boundary between legendary and exotic a bit better. Now, the funny thing is, this has now similar total damage to heavy GLs, which is like, if that doesn't tell you how bad heavy GLs are right now, I don't know what will. It's like, oh, this thing got nerfed, and it still has the same total damage as like a heavy weapon. So that's funny. It has the same total damage as like Truth, Merciless, non 4 times a charm heavy burst shotgun. So that's kind of where it is right now, which I think is like fairly balanced. I will say its DPS is still like pretty strong, like 3500 is still pretty strong DPS, but we're low-key power creeping past it this expansion with the heavy sniper and the special blaster and all this stuff, so, and still hunt. So, you know, they low-key probably needed to nerf it if we were staying in last season, but because we're not staying in last season and we're moving on and there's more powerful stuff now, people are probably gonna think that like rocket pulses are not balanced, but like they're not like immediately needing a nerf like they were last season. If that makes sense, right? They're still very good for a legendary special, don't get me wrong, but you know, it's not as dire as it once was. Rapid fire pulses, I believe Bungie in their patch notes said that there would be a crit damage increase on them, but I only recorded a 3% body shot increase, so just, I mean, who cares? It's whatever, right? Regular shotguns. Okay, so rapid fires, I basically recorded a 3% increase to their base damage. Lightweights, it was a 6.4% increase. Precisions, it was a almost 2% increase. Aggressive shotguns, 6.6% increase. Rapid fire slugs, 6.4% increase. And their DPS also, even when accounting for this new damage, because Assault Mag is no longer bugged, their DPS had dropped 25%. So they were already kind of struggling to be competitive in their Assault Mag bug state with the 140 RPM, I believe. And now that their RPM is back down to where it should be with Assault Mag, with the +5 or +10 or whatever it is, they got a 25% drop in DPS. So yeah, rapid fire slugs, dead in the water. They were already kind of floating in a life jacket, but their life jacket has had punctures in it, and now they are sinking to the bottom of the ocean. Okay, fusion rifles. Some charge time changes, which I did, I believe, adjust in the archetype tier list if I'm not mistaken, but I might not have, so I'll check on that later. But fusion rifles, yeah, I think I did. I'm not sure, whatever. Fusion rifles, yeah, 4%, 4%, 4% for precision, adaptive, aggressive, and 7.3% for high impact. All of these in general, my thoughts on them, they don't really affect the meta because shotguns and fusions are just not really meta right now with how things are, right? You have Special Blaster Lucky Vance, you have Heavy Sniper, which essentially never needs any sort of special ammo system. You have Izzy for shooting the kinetic ruptures, and then you have Still. Like, none of these things have any room in the sandbox for legendary shotguns or legendary fusions. So they're nice. These are nice changes. They're welcome changes. These weapons are a little underperforming, but they're not going to matter. Okay. Exotic weapons. Okay. So this is some interesting stuff. Deathbringer consistency increase is nice, but not that noticeable. Yeah, honestly, when I was using Deathbringer, I didn't see that the clustering was like insanely tight or anything like that. It kind of felt similar to last season if you were shooting at the correct height. But then again, maybe, you know, if you shoot higher, it's like, you know, noticeably tighter clustering or something like that. When it comes to DPS though, this thing has a similar damage profile to Sleeper. So if you go ahead and look at Sleeper, which is placed a couple of rows below it, they have pretty similar total damage, right? 77k to 83k, and their DPS is pretty similar as well. Deathbringer requires like a bit more optimization with like its reload timing and holding and shooting and stuff. You want to get this 2.3 second value. But yeah, it's Deathbringer. I mean, it's fine. It's like a decent dump option, but like the real question is like, why would you use this, I guess, compared to other weapon options? So yeah, that's all I can say about Deathbringer really. Chaperone. So Chaperone has been interesting. They said that they wanted to make this a rapid fire slug or something like that in order to, I don't know, match its identity better or something like that. I don't quite recall. So if you want the raw data, you can just read what's on screen here. But yeah, the new fire rate, it wastes less time when you're reload canceling because, yeah, when you're reload canceling a shotgun, right? Aggressive shotguns, it's not as bad because by the time you reload, the next shot that you can fire, that window isn't even available, right? So having a slow fire rate means that you are like, you know, it's fine. But now that this thing shoots faster, you know, it's closer to like how fast you can actually reload cancel. But at the same time, this thing lost DPS and total. It lost DPS and total. I thought swapping to a rapid fire slug archetype would actually make this weapon higher DPS, but when you account for reload canceling and you account for total reserve dump, yeah, this thing literally lost DPS and total damage, right? It loses about 5.5% DPS, which is Chaperone was already not very good. I mean, 3k DPS is not good. So yeah, losing 5.5% DPS is not great. Yeah, I mean, if you want the technicals, they're all here, but you know, not particularly. Yeah, 9.5% base damage loss. Like, yeah, okay. Anyways, revision 0 has like a little kinetic tremors effect now with the Hunter